right hand, and he's been having success with that since the opening bell. Oh, what a knockout!
And from two was good, and another one! Floors Judah! He's up very quickly, but his eyes are in orbit! It's over!
Even though the knockout is the most electrifying demonstration of strength in all of sports, there are instances when we see knockouts that are just as bizarre and hilarious. This may include anything from first punch knockouts to chicken dances after the fight and everything in between. Thus, keep watching this video because it has some of the most funny knockouts in the history of boxing, which will have you thinking, what the heck just happened? Oliver McCall versus Henry Akenwandi. Henry Akenwandi was knocked out by Oliver McCall with 2 punches that seemed to be mild, leaving everyone in the room perplexed as to what just occurred. Although it seems like Akenwandi was hit by 2 blows that were not very powerful, he dropped to the canvas as if he had been struck by the most powerful punch ever. And he even bounced when he first touched the ground. Sven Otke versus Anthony Mundine. During their fight in 2001, Sven Otke knocked out Anthony Mundine, who was on the verge of becoming a rising star. Otke delivered a small right hook that landed in an uncomfortable manner, which caused Mundine's head to be twisted sideways and ultimately caused him to fall to the canvas. Many people believe that Mundine was in over his head when he took on a title-holding boxer at such an early stage in his career. Also, the fight was for Otke's victory in the IBF Super Middleweight Championship. Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Victor Ortiz. When Floyd Mayweather delivered the knockout of his career to Victor Ortiz, it was the most bizarre and hilarious knockout in the history of boxing. Ortiz disregarded the cardinal rule of boxing, which is to always defend oneself from harm. There was a clear headbutt on Mayweather's chin, and the referee paused the fight to deduct 1 point from Ortiz. When the knockout blow occurred, the referee drew the 2 combatants back together and ordered timeout. This occurred after Ortiz had given Mayweather a hug and a kiss on the cheek. While some people consider it to be a cheap hit, others consider it to be a catastrophic error on Ortiz's part, since he did not defend himself after the referee called timeout, leaving himself wide exposed for a combination that resulted in Mayweather winning the fight with an extraordinary knockout victory. Roy Jones Jr. versus Art Serrano. It was Roy Jones Jr.'s 17th bout as a professional when he surprised everyone by knocking out Art Serrano in 1992. At the time, Jones Jr. was still on the rise. Thus, Jones struck a right hand to the side of Serrano's head, which caused him to fall to the canvas and lie on the side of his body. It's not possible for us to recollect a knockout that was quite similar to this one, in which the fighter who was knocked out just fell over sideways rather than dropping directly to the ground. Mike Tyson versus Trevor Berbick. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Mike Tyson was a monster in the ring, and his knockout power matched that of anybody who had ever walked into the ring. Although the knockout victory that Tyson achieved over Trevor Berbick in 1986 did not look to be particularly forceful, it was nevertheless enough to send Berbick into a state of euphoria, and in the process, it earned Tyson his first heavyweight belt. So Tyson hit an average left hook to the forehead of Berbick, which caused him to stumble and fall to the ground. This was after Tyson had missed a massive uppercut. When Berbick attempted to get up, he had legs like noodles, and he was utterly out of it. This, along with the fact that the punch that he received seemed to be nothing special, makes this a really hilarious knockout. Ashley Sexton versus Usman Ahmed. Ashley Sexton's knockout victory against Usman Ahmed in their fight in 2010 is undeniably unsettling and belongs in the funny category. Following Ahmed's very obnoxious dancing ring entrance and a terrible display of cockiness, Sexton knocked out Ahmed with a devastating right hook before the 2 men fired a single punch. All things considered, Ahmed got exactly what he deserved, since he lacked the ability to back up the sideshow that he put on before the bout. Robbie Pedan versus Nate Campbell. In their battle in 2004, Robbie Pedan made Nate Campbell pay for his clear contempt for his power by knocking him out. Campbell had stood there unprotected, almost daring Pedan to deliver him his best shot. So, Pedan made Campbell pay for his disrespect by knocking him out. Campbell had every intention of cruising to an easy win, but he let his overconfidence take over, and as a result, he ended up losing the battle because he was too arrogant. Julio Cesar Chavez versus Meldrick Taylor. When Julio Cesar Chavez faced Meldrick Taylor in 1990, he was on a winning streak of 68 fights to start his professional career. However, in order to win his 69th fight, he needed to pull a rabbit out of his hat. At the beginning of the 12th and final round, Chavez was in desperate need of a knockout in order to avoid suffering his first defeat. As is now common knowledge, Taylor held a sizable lead on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards, with scores of 107 to 102 and 108 to 101 respectively. Hearing the final bell was all that was required of him in order to emerge victorious. On the other hand, Chavez delivered a massive right hook that knocked Taylor to the ground in the final seconds of the fight. At the count of 6, Taylor stood up, but he did not respond when referee Richard Steele approached him in the corner and spoke to him. The fight was stopped by Steele with only 2 seconds left to go, almost literally at the very last second. This resulted in Chavez achieving one of the most controversial and incredibly hilarious knockout victories in the history of boxing. Thomas Hearns versus Roberto Duran. Back in 1984, Hearns and Duran competed against each other at 154 pounds, where they both held titles. Duran was a fighter who was known for his high level of activity, swarming, and possessing great punching power. On the other hand, Hearns was the quintessential definition of a boxer-puncher, possessing a great deal of power in both hands. The fight between them only lasted for 2 rounds, but it ended in a spectacular manner. The enormous power that Hearns displayed in this fight, which resulted in Duran being knocked out and Hearns winning the fight, cannot be adequately described using words. Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson. With 37 victories and devastating knockout power, Mike Tyson entered the Tokyo Dome as the undisputed heavyweight champion. His adversary, James Buster Douglas, was a contender on the periphery of the sport. He came into the fight as a 42-1 underdog, and he ended up scoring what many people consider to be the most significant upset in the history of boxing. In the beginning, it was obvious that Douglas would not be intimidated by the situation. He used a quick jab to keep Tyson outside, and he did not shy away from opportunities to let his hands go, which was a choice that could have been fatal. Despite the fact that he was knocked down in the 8th round, he managed to beat what some people considered to be a slow count, and he came back in the 10th round to shock the entire world. After suffering his first defeat, Tyson was never the same fighter again. Zab Judah versus Costa Tszyu. When Costa Tszyu knocked down Zab Judah in their bout in 2001, fans had one of the most peculiar responses to a knockout in the history of the sport. After falling like a tree that had been cut down, Judah bounced right back up, performed a little dance, and turned to the referee to tell him something. However, he fell right back down before the referee called him out on his behavior. Although Judah has knocked out a number of opponents during his career, the knockout that he received at the hands of Tszyu will be remembered as one of the most hilarious knockouts in the annals of boxing history. Vincent Pway versus Simon Brown. In 1995, Vincent Pway delivered the funniest knockout of the year when he knocked out Simon Brown. Furthermore, Brown continued to hit Pway when he was unconscious and lying on his back. This occurred during their fight for the IBF Light Middleweight Championship. We speculate that the tendency of fighters to maintain a state of vigilance at all times even comes into play while they're lying unconscious on the ground after being injured by a violent strike. Danny Green versus Paul Briggs. In the first round of their fight in 2010, Danny Green delivered a very minor punch to the forehead of Paul Briggs, which caused him to lose consciousness in 29 seconds. This knockout is without a doubt the most funny knockout we've ever seen. Although there were some worries about Briggs' health, the knockout incident is still a mystery, and it even prompted the authorities to conduct an inquiry. Due to the overall strange circumstances, this knockout is without a doubt at the top of the list of the funniest ever. Please share with us in the comments section below which of the boxing knockouts you found to be the most funny and why. And that wraps things up. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Please hit the subscribe button and we'll see you in the next one.